Is it possible for you to get a blank check from a bank to be able to write out for cash, to be able to pay off your bills, to be able to basically pay for anything that you want to? Well, the short answer is yes, and in this video I'm going to explain to you exactly how the blank check strategy works, how you could utilize it to be able to pay off whatever you need to pay off or use the money for whatever you need it for, and exactly how this whole process works. So buckle up your seatbelts because here we go. I have a lot of stuff to share with you, so let's get to crack-a-lack-it. Okay, so you're probably wondering, well, Monica, this is really too good to be true. Like, what bank is going to give you a blank check to be able to write it for any amount possible and, to pay off bills or to write it out for cash or whatever it is that you want to write this check out for? Well, the shorter answer is there is a way to do it. It's not free money, though. It's money you do have to pay back. And I know a lot of you have asked about how to get money off of credit cards, especially if you get, for example, unsecured business credit cards, and you want to know, hey, Monica, how do I get the money off the unsecured business credit cards, especially those that have a 0% APR promotional period for a year? Like, how do I get that money off the credit cards to be able to buy a business, to be able to pay off some of my bills, to be able to use the money for whatever I want, maybe even to put that cash into my bank account? Because as you know, it's very difficult to be able to get the money off of a credit card to do that. So there is a couple of strategies to be able to do that. Number one, you can get a software, it's a software subscription called getharvest.com. There's another one called freshbooks.com, and you could basically use this invoicing platform software to be able to get money off of your unsecured business credit cards that you get, and you can have that money deposited directly into your business bank account. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to be able to get a merchant service, like for example Stripe.com or EasyPayDirect.com, and you have a merchant service and you can actually run your own credit cards, and ultimately what will happen is that money that you run off your own credit cards will end up in your business checking account. So that's another way. There is another way of doing it, but before I share with you exactly how to do it or where to get this money or where to get these blank checks from these banks, I want to share with you kind of how this whole process works, because many of you are like, what are you talking about, unsecured business credit? Like, how does that work? Well, number one, you do have to have a for-profit corporate entity or an LLC, one of the two, to be able to have a business structure set up. And then number two, you need to have an EIN. An EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. That's essentially the Social Security number for your company. You do need to have that set up. And then once you have those two things, then you can, number three, get yourself a business checking account, which you're going to be able to have to be able to have this money coming in as deposits into that business checking account. So once you're able to do those three things, then and only then can you start getting something called convenience checks. Now you're probably wondering, what is a convenience check, Monica? Well, convenience check is issued by certain credit card issuing banks. Not all of them will do convenience checks, but a couple of them will. I'm going to explain to you what those two banks are that I use a lot for convenience checks. And you can actually utilize those convenience checks too, where you can essentially take these blank checks that the bank sends to you. You can write it out for cash. You can even deposit it in your personal bank account if you'd like to. You could deposit it in your business checking account. You could write it out for a bill that you need to pay, for example. You can even buy a business with one of these blank checks, or you can actually deposit the money into your business checking account first and then wire the money over to buy a business, like say on flippa.com, for example. So that's a way of being able to get cash from your unsecured business credit cards. Now you're probably wondering, well, what kind of FICO score do I need to be able to get an unsecured business credit card that will be able to give me tens of thousands of dollars in unsecured credit right off the bat? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's ideal that you have a FICO score of 750 or above. In the very least is 720 mid FICO or above to be able to actually acquire and qualify for this unsecured business credit. So it's not enough that you simply have a corporate entity with an EIN number and a business checking account. You also have to have a mid FICO between 720 or 750 or above to be able to qualify to get tens of thousands of dollars. So take Chase Inc., for example. Chase Inc. will probably give you at minimum $50,000 in unsecured credit at a 0% APR promotional period for a year. You could essentially use other people's money for free for a year to buy a cash flowing business or a cash flowing piece of real estate or whatever you'd like to buy that could ideally make you money. And then you can use the cash flow from that business or from that real estate to pay off those bare minimum monthly payments that the credit card issuing bank is going to ask for before any interest will kick in after a year. And by the time the interest kicks in after a year, ideally you'll have the credit card paid off, right? So some of you have been asking, well, what if I need to get that money wired over to flippa.com to be able to buy a business and I can't just use a credit card to buy a business or buy a piece of real estate? And the answer is you have to get that money off of your unsecured business credit cards. Now with Chase Inc., for example, I have not been able to get a convenience check from them. And so what I would have to do if I were to use the Chase Inc. money would be to run the credit card through my own merchant service to be able to have that money land directly into my business checking account, and then I can wire that money to anywhere I'd like it to go. Now, there's a couple of banks that you can get these convenience checks from. In fact, they send them to me hand over fist. So the first one is U.S. Bank. So if you can get yourself a U.S. Bank business credit card, an unsecured business credit card, they'll typically start you off anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 in unsecured business credit or higher right off the bat. And they will send you convenience checks at least once a month, if not every other month, depending on how often you use the convenience checks. And it's essentially a blank check that you could put into your own bank account, and then that becomes cash right away. Of course, there's money that you have to pay to use this money. It's usually about 3%. But money's not 100% free. So if you're ever going to borrow money from anybody, don't expect that there's not going to be any interest, there's not going to be any payments, there's not going to be anything. Nothing comes at a zero cost. There's always some kind of cost involved if you're going to be borrowing money from a bank. However, the 3% is worth it if you're going to be getting involved in a highly profitable cash flowing piece of real estate, for example, or a highly profitable cash flowing business that's well established. So it's worth the 3% to be able to buy a business that could maybe make you a $5,000 to $10,000 monthly cash flow income coming in, right? So you have to think in terms of that. You know, it takes money to make money, and in order for you to borrow money, you're going to have to pay some kind of interest to the people that are willing to give you the money up front to be able to buy these cash flowing businesses or real estate. So U.S. Bank is one of them. That's one of my favorite banks to be able to get convenience checks. Again, they send them all the time. So if you have a couple of different businesses instead of just one, then you can get yourself 2 U.S. Bank cards for the 2 different businesses that you have. And then what you could do is get 2 different sets of convenience checks coming in where you can write those checks to yourself. And then you can basically wire that money to whatever business or piece of real estate you want to purchase. The other bank that likes to give out convenience checks is Elon, which is kind of a bank that backs other banks on the surface. So for example, BMW Financial will issue a credit card. This is usually a personal credit card. And BMW Financial uses Elon to process payments and to basically front the money to you in the form of credit. Ameris Bank is another one. I call Ameris Bank a fake bank because everything they do behind the scenes involves another bank. So their credit cards for their bank are all from Elon Financial. It's ELAN Financial. And same with, it's crazy. So when I paid off my house loan, when I had given the lump sum to Ameris Bank, which was my mortgage holder for a very short period of time at that time, I had to actually pay JP Morgan Chase to be able to pay off my mortgage. And I'm like, wait a minute, Ameris Bank is supposedly a bank, but all they are is just simply a facade, and they use all of these other clearance houses to be able to front payments, process payments, etc. So Ameris Bank is really not a real bank as far as I'm concerned. So the cool thing about Ameris, though, is that they offer 0% APR promotional periods all the time, including on business credit cards, and everything is through Elon. So even though it's going to be an Ameris Bank card that you're going to have, it's going to be through Elon Financial, and Elon Financial likes to send out convenience checks. So you'll be getting a lot of convenience checks if you have any business bank or any business credit card that is through Elon Financial. They'll be sending you convenience checks all the time. So those are the 2 main business credit card banks that I know of that likes to send out regular convenience checks. In the very least, they'll send out one every quarter, and it'll be U.S. Bank And anything that's through Elon Financial, if you're not sure which unsecured business credit cards that would be, just simply go to Ameris Bank, Ameris Bank, and sign up for their unsecured business credit card, provided that you already have your business entity and EIN set up. And then what you could do is you'll start to enjoy the benefits of getting these regular convenience checks that you can use to be able to pull that cash off of those credit cards for that 0% APR promotional period to ultimately use to build wealth. So that's essentially how the convenience check system works. So if you found that this was useful for you, please give me a nice thumbs up, as well as consider subscribing to my channel. You can also get my free Credit Millionaire book. It's a 100% free instant download that you can get by going to my website. That's down below in the description box. Because if you do not have a 720 to a 750 or above mid personal credit FICO score, you're going to have to start fixing it right away, which is fairly easy and simple to do. Just simply download my free book, Credit Millionaire, and it will give you all the tips, secrets, and strategies that you need to be able to do that right away. So go ahead and head down to the description box and check it out right now. This is Monica Main signing off, and I will see you in the next video.